Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from YouTube, Twitter, and everywhere else and answer them here on this show. And yes, in fact, in video format. Now, let's get to your question. The first one comes from T Knows, who says, since the Browns have officially announced the signing of Clowney, not just officially, he was in the building before June 1st. Do you think there's more moves on the way? Reason this is because the Browns were able to sign Clowney to a pretty handsome $11 million deal before they got the Austin Hooper money freed up. Now, again, I don't pretend to know the salary cap. And I honestly think anybody who does pretend to know the salary cap, they're either guessing or capping, right? Because nobody knows. Only Andrew Berry really knows those figures, and maybe Kevin Stefanski, maybe. But that's significant, right? That means that, I think they'll wait out the mandatory period of camp. They'll see what they see from the young guys. They'll see what they see from the offensive line, and I think they will make maybe one more signing. I don't know if it's going to be a starter. I don't know if it's anything as crazy as like Ndamukong Suh or something like that, but they have the ability, the flexibility to do it, and they certainly have the money to be able to do it. I think they'll wait this out, see what happens in mandatory period, make sure there are no major injuries during that period between the end of mandatory camps and the start of training camp. I think they'll wait that, which is going to be a long month. And then once they get back to camp, you'll start hearing that they're going to bring some guys in, right? Especially after like those first 2 days of pads. I would expect somebody, maybe in the second week of camp to get brought in because it just makes sense. They want to get these young guys some reps, right? Because if you bring in Ndamukong Suh, you're not really guessing what you're going to get out of him. But I would expect them to kind of see what they have in these young guys, see if they feel like that's enough, maybe see them in pads a little bit, see them work, crash a little bit, see if they feel like they can contribute or they're on track to contribute by September. If they don't feel like that's the case, then I think that we'll go ahead and make a move. If they feel like they need to use that money for a wide receiver, I think they'll go ahead and make a move. Either way, that extra money is going to be insurance for this team just in case there's an injury, right? Say a corner gets injured, you want to bring in Joe Hayden. Say there's a linebacker injury and you want to bring back Malcolm Smith. Say there is a defensive line injury, you want to bring in Ndamukong Suh or maybe somebody else, one of the older guys, the older edge players is still available. Same thing on the offensive side. What if one of the speed guys get hit? Okay, well, maybe you want to bring in Will Fuller. They have that flexibility that if they need to get a veteran to be able to play a significant role because they have a significant injury in camp, or maybe one of the young players that they're projecting to play a significant role just does not look like they're on track to do so by September. They have the flexibility to do that, which is a very good thing and a very good sign going forward. Again, the Browns, they're top class when it comes to this cap management, it seems right now. We'll see in 5 years if this all works out for them. But as of right now, they're in a pretty strong cap situation, given that they have an $18 million burden in the quarterback that they probably aren't going to have walk into the building again in Baker Mayfield. It's incredible that they're still in this position with the salary cap. Now, again, this is going to become tighter and tighter once that Deshaun Watson contract becomes more real as the years add on to it. But as of right now, they've done a good job managing that whole situation. I have to commend them on that. Next question comes from Gage, who says, hey, Q, what will the defensive line rotation situation be like? And could we bring in another corner such as Joe Hayden? Well, I kind of described the situation in which they would bring in a Joe Hayden. Maybe there's an injury. Maybe they don't feel comfortable with Greedy taking all those reps on that other boundary corner position, so they bring in Joe. Or maybe they're not satisfied with the competition there at that slot corner position. Maybe they don't want to end up using Greg in there, or maybe Greg gets hurt or something like that. Knock on wood, I hope no injury for anybody, but maybe they don't feel confident in one of those young players to coming in. Joe Hayden would be great for that slot because he's one of the smartest corners in football. He's been that in Pittsburgh since he has gotten there, and he was still a really good corner for that team based off of his smarts because he's still athletic, but he's not the Joe Hayden of old, right? But he's smart enough to be able to hang in there, and I think there is some potential there if you want to just have Joe inside because he's just so damn smart, and that would make some sense. So maybe they feel like it would be an upgrade and they would do it. Again, this is going to be after they make some adjustments in OTAs, they make some adjustments at the beginning of training camp, and then assess where they're at after that, right? If they feel like the program at slot corner is behind, they'll bring in Joe Hayden. Now, as far as the defensive line rotation, I fully expect it to be Taven Bryant, Perion Winfrey probably starting. But Perion's going to have to win that role out. I know I believe in Perion. I know a lot of people believe in Perion. But again, Perion still has to put the work in to win that role. I don't know if that's going to happen. I feel confident that it's going to happen, but I can't guarantee you that it will. As far as the people who will rotate in and out at the defensive line position with D tackle, so we're talking about 3 tech, you'll probably rotate in Sheldon Day. He'll be heavy in that rotation. I would also assume that, you know, Tommy Togiai or Jordan Elliott. I think one of those two are going to have to win that battle out. I think it will probably be Togiai. And I think Elliott probably still will factor into the rotation there because he does have some decent size on him now that he's bulked up a little bit. And I think that'll probably be the rotation. A lot of Taven Bryan, a lot of Sheldon Day, Perion Winfrey with some Jordan Elliott probably sprinkled in there with some Tommy Togiai. And then as far as the edges go, we know Miles and Jadeveon going to start, and then we'll probably rotate in Chase. The Browns will probably rotate in Chase Winovich, and also maybe throw in Alex Wright in that first year to kind of take that Joe Jackson spot. I don't know if Joe Jackson's still on this team because he was actually not that bad last year for the Cleveland Browns. So maybe that ends up being there. I also would say maybe Alex Wright could factor into that rotation at 3 tech too. Maybe they want to move from there. Also, the Browns do a really good job, and I'm going to release a film breakdown maybe on Monday of what the pieces and what the future could be of that defensive line with how the Browns can move things around. That I think is going to be very interesting to look at. So keep your eye out on your sub box there and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing. All right, the next question comes from the next question comes from Brian, who says, "Let the show. Do you really have confidence in Anthony Schwartz, or is Grant going to have a bigger role than just a returner?" I fully expect that Grant's gonna play a bigger role than what most people are expecting. I think people are just going to think he's going to return for punts and kicks. I think he probably has about 400 or 500 yards of receiving, maybe 400 to 500 yards. I think he has that, maybe a couple touchdowns, maybe a couple big plays. I think they're going to utilize him as a wide receiver, significant enough to where he's not a footnote. So we'll see what happens with Anthony Schwartz. I think they still believe in Anthony Schwartz. We'll see what happens in camp with Anthony Schwartz. But you know, he's not in the doghouse in any way, and he's going to have a tremendous opportunity when it comes to Anthony Schwartz and his ability to make an impact this year. But I do think they're going to use Grant in a capacity as a wide receiver as well, and I think he's going to have a significant role as a wide receiver. Not like not one of the top receivers on the team by any means, but you know, he's not going to not be used as a wide receiver. He's definitely going to be there. J.A., great analysis, Quincy. J.A. with a question here who says, "I think we need to experience wide receiver because we have a lot of unknown potential players on our roster. Who do you think can bring in that and might add something?" I think you have experience in there, right? You have Grant, and you also have Amari Cooper. I mean, that's experience right there. Donovan Peoples-Jones is not a rookie anymore, right? He is in his 3rd year. So at that point, he does not need guidance anymore. He needs production. Anthony Schwartz, yeah, you can bring him along. David Bell, yeah, you can bring him along. But Amari Cooper's experienced enough for all of that, right? Amari Cooper been in this league, since 2014 or 2015? I forget when he came into the league. But he's a veteran now, right? He is an older guy. He's been around the league. Grant's an older guy, been around the league. You have wide receiving coaches as well. I think that they have a lot of wide receiving experience on their roster to bring along a young guy. I don't think they need to go out and sign a veteran just for that role. It's not like you're starting all of these guys on their rookie deals. You got 2 guys out there that are going to be well experienced and able to help. I mean, Amari Cooper is one of the best when it comes to route tree and route patience and detail in the NFL. The next question comes from GC, who says, hey, Q, would you ever consider moving to more general NFL news topics or doing more film breakdowns like Brett Coleman? Love your takes and personality. Would love to see your channel grow. You definitely deserve more subs and publicity. I'm always down for the slow grind. I'm never going to rush things. I will say if I do that and move to more general news, I will probably do it on a different channel. It would kind of be like my Cavs thing where that would be on a different channel than what was the main channel, just because, this is the AFC North Browns focused channel. And that's the audience that this channel is for. But if I were to reach out and want to go do things like that and felt comfortable doing it, that I would probably do it on a different channel. Right now, I'm wary of spreading myself thin. I do a lot of work in the off season. I do a lot of work during the season. I'm still, even though it's like my 4th year of doing this, I'm still trying to figure out what the right balance is, work, life, health, and all that. So, I don't have any plans in the works of doing any general NFL news, but it could be something that could come up in the future. I'm always thinking about ways to expand and ways to make sure that my career doesn't just end one day unexpectedly, right? Aren't we all? All right, Rob M. with the next question says, on Baker to the Panthers, how much of a salary we take? What, if anything, should we get in picks in return and compensation? It's the interesting thing. I don't know if the Panthers will even sign Baker Mayfield if he's a free agent. They have, you talk about the Browns having a lot of quarterbacks. The Panthers right now are paying Sam Darnold. They also have PJ Walker on that roster, who was like the XFL MVP. I know that don't mean nothing, but they still let him start. They still believe in him a little bit. They just drafted Matt Corral, and they're in talks with bringing in Cam Newton. Now, they want to make it very clear to Cam Newton that he's not going to start. And here's what I find very difficult to believe is that you would tell Cam Newton in Carolina he cannot start, but bring in Baker Mayfield to start. That just doesn't add up to me. I know that a lot of people think that Baker Mayfield right now is better than Cam Newton right now, but this is not what I'm talking about. This is Cam Newton in Carolina. And if you tell Cam Newton in Carolina no, and you bring in Baker Mayfield in Carolina, he doesn't have a home there, right? On a 1-year deal, and you start him over Cam, like you bring him in off the street, start him over Matt Corral, and start him over Cam, and start him over Sam Darnold. I mean, that's going to be a mess. That's going to be an absolute mess. I don't think Baker even wants to sign up for that one, right? Honestly, if I were Baker and Baker's people, and I know they're not thinking like this because we know how Baker's people have been throughout this whole process, I would start to look at Jameis Winston and say, hey, that's what I want to do. If Tom Brady is okay with you backing him up, go back up Tom Brady for a year. Yeah, you're not going to play. Nobody's going to talk about you for a year, and you're going to sit out that $18 million pretty, but not playing. But if you get that magic Tom dust on you, and Tom out here in the media talking about, oh, Baker's been the perfect guy behind the scenes, and Tom Brady is the guy out here vouching for your ability as a locker room leader, if you make a good impression on Tom Brady, you're going to have a much better free agency than you would if you went to Carolina and won like 6 games, right? And I guess people are going to call me a hater. I don't know. But when it comes to Baker, I think his people need to realize that him starting this year at this point, I don't know if that's the best thing for him, because none of these starting opportunities, you might win 6 games with Seattle. Maybe you make the playoffs. Maybe you win 6 games. That roster couldn't win a bunch of games last year, and they had Russ. I don't think Baker's an upgrade over Russ. I don't know what they're going to do with Baker, right? Maybe they win 6 games. Maybe they win 7. Baker puts up some decent numbers. It's still going to be hard for him to get the money that he wants. I think it would be honestly better if he just sat out that whole Tom Brady thing. Maybe the Bucks bring you back if you just make a great impression. You start there. They have all the weapons in the world in Tampa Bay, right? Because if this is Tom Brady's last year, he retires, you take that spot. Now you're throwing to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You can make a better impression. You have a good year there, a decent year there. You're probably going to be in the playoffs. You're probably going to make it to the second round just because that's how much talent is on that Tampa Bay team that's built to win now. And then you'll come out of that probably making big money, right? But trying to do this whole I need to start right now thing, I don't know how that's going to work out for you, because you go to Carolina and win 6 games, you're going to end up like Blake Bortles is right now. And let me tell you, you don't want to be Blake Bortles right now as far as where you think you are and where you could be. You know what I mean? But that's just my honest truth on that whole thing. I really hope he understands he don't need to start right away, because I don't even think that's what's best for him. Matt says, is Nick Harris really ready for a starting role? The front office obviously thinks so, but his limited tape from last year doesn't give me confidence. His tape was not that bad last year. I don't know where people are getting this. His tape was not bad last year. He was actually pretty good when he was out there. It was limited, sure, but like it was enough snaps to where if he were going to be exposed, you would see it. The only tape you worry about with Nick Harris isn't the tape from last year. It's really the tape from 2 years ago when he played guard against the New York Jets. That was some awful tape, right? If you go to that game when everybody got COVID, nobody could play, and they had to have Nick Harris at guard, he was awful in that game, and they abused him. But he's gotten bigger since then. He's gotten stronger since then. And also he's going to be playing in position. He's a 5'10 dude. He should never been playing guard in the first place. So they're going to move him back to his natural position at center. And even in 2020, in 2020, when he played center, he was fine. He was fine. It was only until they moved him to guard that he got exposed for not being strong enough. But I think he'll be fine at center. I think a lot of people are worrying about a lot of nothing there with Nick Harris. I think he's going to be all right. We got a question from a Steeler fan here who says, why do you think people keep saying Garrett is better than TJ Watt? I know Garrett is a better athlete, but that doesn't make him a better defensive player. Take whatever metric, stat, game tape, it seems TJ always outperforms Myles Garrett. Okay, that's debatable. First off, but even with the defensive player, he doesn't get any love. Okay, for one, Pittsburgh fans, shut up about TJ Watt not getting any love. TJ Watt gets plenty of love. Please shut up about that. Y'all be crying about, oh, TJ doesn't get, he gets all the love. He's a Watt brother. He gets all the love. There is no anti-TJ Watt committee on the net. I don't know why Steelers fans love to play the victim so much when they don't have any reason to play the victim, but they love playing the victim over there in Pittsburgh. Now, all that garbage aside, why do people keep saying Garrett is better than TJ Watt? Okay, TJ Watt is a more productive player. He puts up sometimes better stats. I think Garrett has put up better pressure numbers, which is the premier stat when it comes to edge rusher. But yeah, TJ Watt could be more productive. But if you put TJ Watt and Myles Garrett next to each other and you surveyed all 32 defensive coordinators, I think a significant plurality of them would take Myles Garrett over TJ Watt, because they feel like you can do more with Myles Garrett than you can with TJ Watt. And again, we're talking about two of the best players in the defense in the world right now, right? Like two of the best defensive players in the world right now. So this is no slight to anybody. TJ Watt is very versatile compared to any other NFL player. Compared to Myles Garrett, he's not as versatile as Myles Garrett. He's not as athletic as Myles Garrett. He's not going to be able to do as many things and make plays in as many situations as Myles Garrett. So I think you're conflating two things that aren't necessarily equal. Is TJ Watt more productive in Pittsburgh than Myles Garrett has been in Cleveland? You can definitely make that argument. I think it's a pretty good argument. But that does not mean that TJ Watt is the better player than Myles Garrett, because, again, I think people would rather have Myles Garrett on their team than TJ Watt, because Myles is just a freak athletically. You can't really game plan for that. And also, he can just do more than what TJ Watt can do. Not saying TJ's not versatile. He's definitely versatile. He's a good run defender. He's a good pass rusher. He does all those things. And sometimes he drops back in coverage, but Myles Garrett's just a little bit more capable of all of those things, and he's a better athlete, which makes him a player that people would covet more. That's why people like Myles Garrett. And honestly, Myles Garrett's fun to talk about because Myles Garrett's a freak athletically, right? And that's just more fun to talk about. There were a bunch of guys, well, not a bunch of guys. There were some guys who were better than Julius Peppers when he was dominating the league, but Julius Peppers is just the funnest guy to talk about. You know what I mean? It just, sometimes it's like that. So, try not to get too hurt, Steelers fans. People still like TJ Watt. They just would prefer Myles Garrett in some cases because, he's Myles Garrett. Why are we? Come on, man. He acted like Myles Garrett is like Derek Barnett. That's wild to me. He's Myles Garrett. He is literally almost beating you single-handedly with a trash team. Like, come on, man. Come on. Why Steelers fans act like that? But appreciate you stepping up in enemy territory, Eric, and asking the question. I know that couldn't have been easy. But thank you guys for asking these questions. Y'all have a great day and have a good night.